At the 2011 trade deadline, the New York Knicks made a blockbuster trade. Even though they were doing pretty well halfway through the season, with Amar'e Stoudemire leading the way, the Knicks felt like they needed to make a big splash. Instead of doing the smart thing and waiting until the offseason to sign Melo, they basically blew up half their roster to acquire him in a mid-season trade. Part of it was because Melo was very adamant on wanting to get a contract extension from the Knicks before the 2011 lockout happened, cause nobody knew how the new collective bargaining agreement would change how contracts worked. Anyway, how's it going, fellas? My name's Andy, and today we're gonna take a look back at the Carmelo Anthony era with the New York Knicks. And if you want to see him play, I'd recommend checking out SeatGeek. It's an app that aggregates ticket prices from all over the web to help you find the best deals for games, concerts, Broadway shows, and other events. The prices marked in green are good, while the ones in red are bad. The app is very easy to use, and you can also see the view from your seats before you buy it, which is my favorite feature. I used the app to buy tickets to a Knicks game last year, and the process was very smooth. Use my promo code ANDY at checkout to get $20 off your first purchase. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. Let's get started. So after Melo arrived in February of 2011, the Knicks finished off the season hovering around a 500 record. They finished the season 42-40 and got swept in the first round by the Boston Celtics, as both Melo and Stoudemire shot very poorly for the series. But it was fine and expected. Nobody thought they'd make it very far this year anyway. The team lost a ton of depth after trading for Melo, and they did not have much time to develop better chemistry before the playoffs started. At the beginning of the next season, 2011-12, there was a lockout, and the team got off to a slow start when the season started, going 7-13 in their first 20 games. Additionally, Melo and Stoudemire had their share of injuries, and the spotlight shifted to someone else.
Lin puts it up. Bang! Jeremy Lin from downtown.
Yup, the 2012 season was all about Linsanity. Jeremy Lin was riding the bench all season long until the slew of injuries gave him the opportunity he was waiting for. In his first 10 games as a starter, he led the Knicks with 24 points and 9 assists per game. In the month of February, he helped the Knicks get back into the playoff hunt, leading them to a 10-4 record while playing at an all-star level. This was by far the biggest story of the season, and probably the most relevant the Knicks have been in over a decade. But as the season progressed, the hype slowly died down and coach Mike D'Antoni opted to quit. The Knicks made Mike Woodson as the new head coach, and they finished the season with a promising 18-6 record, and also secured a top 5 defense in the league, far better than when Mike D'Antoni was the coach. Tyson Chandler even won the Defensive Player of the Year while also making the second team All-Defense. It was going pretty well with Woodson as the new coach, and in April, Melo had the most clutch performance of his career against the Chicago Bulls. He was hitting clutch 3 after clutch 3, and it was just spectacular. Definitely the best Knicks game this season.
Anthony for 3. Puts it in. Knicks by 1.
They rolled into the playoffs with some momentum, but they still lost in the first round again, this time in 5 games to the eventual champion Miami Heat. Once again, it was expected that they would lose, but it was still disappointing. This was also the series where Amar'e Stoudemire punched a fire extinguisher and brutally injured his hand. He did return for Game 4 and redeemed himself by having his best game of the series and helping them win their only game of the series. I should also mention that in this season, Stoudemire started to decline. Despite being a 6-time All-Star before the age of 29, his knee problems piled up. His knees were sore a lot, and part of it was because he said he gained some weight during the lockouts. The same thing happened to Melo and a lot of other players around the league too. They came into training camp out of shape because of the extra time off during the lockout, and it certainly showed in their play. Melo had his lowest scoring output since his sophomore season, and his percentages all around the floor were a bit lower than usual. Anyway, fast forward to the 2012-13 season, and we see the Knicks having their best season in that era. 54 wins was the highest number of wins they've had since the 1997 season, and Melo had arguably the best season of his entire career. He spent most of his time at power forward, averaging nearly 29 points per game, the highest mark in the NBA. He even managed to get one first-place MVP vote, preventing LeBron from being the first unanimous MVP ever. Also, before the season started, the Knicks really wanted to keep Jeremy Lin, but the Rockets offered him a poison pill contract. It was 3 years, $25 million, but the annual salary would be $5 million in the first 2 years and then $15 million in the third year. This discouraged the Knicks from matching it, fearing that they'd be hit with a ridiculous luxury tax in the third year, so they let him go, which of course pissed off a lot of fans. Linsanity was the most exciting thing to happen to the franchise in a long time, and it was over, just like that. Anyway, as the new season started, the Knicks put together a brand new team that fits Melo's playstyle very well, although most of the players they signed were very old. They had a 39-year-old Jason Kidd, a 38-year-old Rasheed Wallace, a 38-year-old Marcus Camby, 35-year-old Kenyon Martin, 35-year-old rookie Pablo Prigioni, and a 40-year-old Kurt Thomas. Yeah, they were the oldest team in the league, and most of those guys played a decent number of minutes too. It was also no surprise that the Knicks fell off very quickly after this great season. They also re-signed Raymond Felton, who was great in his first stint there. And J.R. Smith had the best season of his career, winning 6th Man of the Year. Steve Novak continued his great shooting, and Chris Copeland also made his NBA debut and provided a good scoring punch off the bench. Unfortunately, Stoudemire had right knee surgery and only managed to play 29 games this season, but frankly, the Knicks did not need him. At this point, they made it clear that this team belonged to Melo, and having two superstars who were bad defenders certainly hurt them. That's the main reason why they could never mesh together on the courts. Overall, this version of the Knicks was really old, but also really solid. They finally got past the first round of the playoffs, but then lost to the Indiana Pacers in the second round. Melo had a great series, but nobody else showed up, and that was that. Up until this video, that was the last time we saw the Knicks in the playoffs. In the following season, 2013-14, every single player on that team just got worse. Well, with the exception of Stoudemire, who had a great bounce-back year, embracing his new role off the bench. Before the season, most predicted that they would win close to 50 games and finish with the 3rd or 4th best record in the East, but that did not happen. It wasn't even close. Most of the team regressed, and a bunch of their old guys from the previous season retired. This led to an unspectacular season where they underachieved, winning just 37 games and missing the playoffs entirely. But at least the Knicks provided one of the most amazing highlights ever.
Sets the table for Bargnani, look out! Scary play, and Bargnani...
So near the end of the season, Phil Jackson became the new president of basketball operations and basically fired Mike Woodson and the entire coaching staff. With a guy like Phil Jackson coming in, it was a huge deal. He was a well-known figure with a reputation for winning. But that was as a coach, not as an executive. Moving on to the 2014-15 season, and this is when the team got blown up. Melo had knee surgery and missed half the season. Stoudemire, J.R. Smith, and Iman Shumpert all got traded at the trade deadline. So now it was time to tank. Led by the amazing backcourt trio of Langston Galloway, Shane Larkin, and Tim Hardaway Jr., the Knicks finished with a 17-65 record, the second worst record in the NBA. Unfortunately, they only managed to get the 4th pick in the draft, which they used to select Kristaps Porzingis. And we all know what the reactions were. But in his rookie season, Porzingis would prove his haters wrong and made an immediate impact on the floor. Combine that with the offseason acquisitions of Robin Lopez and Aaron Aflalo, and the Knicks were quietly making moves to get back into the playoff picture. As for Melo, this was, in my opinion, his second best season with the Knicks. The stats and numbers in general might not look that way, but he changed up his game and started passing the ball a lot more. He even registered the highest assist average of his career. This season, he was really unselfish, and he even became a mentor for Porzingis. The two of them had a great relationship, despite what the New York media might tell you. Porzingis has said, "Obviously I want him to stay here, we need him, I need him, and we don't want to lose him. Without him, it would be much more difficult. Him leaving would be tough, but I'm not worried about that. I don't think it's going that way. He's been loyal, I think he loves New York, and that's the most important thing." Not everyone was happy with Melo though, and there were so many times when the crowd screamed out boos when he held the ball for too long. This would continue for the next season as well. Even though Phil Jackson continued to make moves trying to make the playoffs, it wasn't working out. And by the summer of 2017, Melo finally got traded, ending that era in a very unspectacular fashion. In 7 seasons, the Knicks made the playoffs 3 times and made it as far as the second round. Some would say that the Carmelo Anthony experiment failed, but honestly, it was way more success than what the Knicks had during the mid-2000s. For those who don't know, I'm a Knicks fan, and I really enjoyed what Melo and Stoudemire brought to the city. They wanted to come to New York during a time when the team really sucked. And I know it's New York City and they like the spotlights, but it's still a great feeling when superstars want to go to your favorite team. Melo also never complained about anything, and he took all of the bullets for the Knicks' failures, even though most of the blame should go to the management. He was the scapegoat every time they lost, which I think is unfair. The rest of his team wasn't much better either. I think most fans just didn't like his playstyle and his questionable effort on defense, cause I mean he was a ball stopper and loved to ISO. But that's how he liked to play. I can't fault someone for playing the way that they've been playing for their entire lives, even if it's not ideal. Anyway, that sums up the video. What were your favorite moments of this era? Do you think the Knicks could have done a better job building around Melo? Let me know in the comments. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.